I believe me and a friend have seen what would be called a Dogman. It happened when we were driving down some very rural roads here in Montana, looking for his phone he lost a few days earlier. He was drunk when he called me to ask for help. I had a few beers myself, but I wasn't drunk, so I thought I'd help him. These roads are very rural, and there's hardly ever any traffic except a few locals. We followed his supposed route, looking for the phone he said he lost when he got out to piss and fell down. In all, we followed these roads for 30 miles or so, and then turned back. The sun was starting to set, so it's getting to be dusk outside, and I'm still half-heartedly looking for his phone near the ditch of the road. There were a few times I thought I'd seen something that could be a phone, so I'd stop and have him check it out. It was never his phone. Eventually, we called it a night and gave up hope of finding it. We were halfway back, so 15 more miles until town. It's damn near dark out by this point. I have the high beams on, and I see a figure crossing the road about 30 to 40 yards ahead of us, and it's huge. At first, I think elk. That would be the most common, but it's not moving like an elk. Then I think moose, because they are kind of gangly looking, so they move kind of weird, but they're rarely seen in my area. It has happened, but very rarely. So now I'm thinking bear. It does kind of move like a bear, but it's much too big to be a black bear. Grizzlies are almost unheard of in this part of the state. It has happened, but it's extremely rare. So I'm thinking this is a very, very cool experience. But then this thing does something that just blows my mind. Keep in mind all of this is happening really fast. So my mind is trying to explain logical reasons to myself while this thing lumbers across the road. When I say lumber, I don't mean it's clumsy. It moves in a very methodical and very fluid motion. This damn thing gets to the edge of the road, stands up on two legs, and walks into the ditch like a person would. Once again, very fluid-like. I've seen bears walk on two legs. There's even a bear in Colorado somewhere that does this all the time, and it looks pretty creepy to be honest. But this was not a bear. I repeat, this was not a bear. At least not one that I've ever seen. It could have been the height or taller than a grizzly standing on its hind legs, but from my estimation it would have had to have been quite a bit taller for what it did next. It walked down into the ditch and up the other side and casually walked over a 4.5-foot fence, like we would walk over a short picket fence for a garden. And when it walked over said fence, it stared back at us. I could clearly see the side profile of the head as it was turning to look at us. It looked nothing like a bear. It looked like a wolf head except 2 to 3 times as large. The arms were way too long to be bear arms, and not as much fur, or at least girth that looks like fur, I guess. And also I could swear I saw long fingers with claws at the end of each arm. The way it moved, the way it looked over at us, and the way it looked in general, all screamed werewolf to me. I have never seen anything like it, but I hope to see it again. I wasn't really scared seeing it. I wasn't even scared after the fact. It just seemed like an extremely rare and unique experience. But the way it moved into the ditch and crossed the fence screams to me that this is not an animal that is quadruped. This is a very unique animal. After it was all over, and it disappeared into the darkness on the other side of the fence, my friend looked at me and asked if I had seen that. I said yes and asked him to explain to me what he had seen. He did, and it was almost the exact description of what I had seen as well. I asked him what he thought it was, and these are his words, not mine. Werewolf. And then he chuckled a bit. But that was my exact thought as well. I did some research, and there have been many sightings and such all over the world. There are even quite a few in the US, with the first modern sighting or actually documented sighting of a werewolf, being in Minnesota, I believe. They didn't call it a werewolf, but a dogman, and I firmly believe that I've seen one. Like I said, I wasn't scared. It didn't seem malevolent in any way. It was just going about its business. If anything, when it looked at us, it seemed curious. Anyways, this is my story. I really don't think anyone will believe it, but I thought I'd share it with my favorite community. This happened about 3 years ago, during my 5th field collection for my doctoral work on nutrient balance and salinity drift in the Big Cypress. I've lived in Miami my whole life, and even though I've driven past the sawgrass and cypress stands 1,000 times, I'd never really been out there until this project. My advisor thought I was crazy for choosing the swamp over something more convenient like urban runoff or coastal sampling, but I wanted to see how far inland pollution really carried where the water still looked wild. The first couple of trips were fine. Humid, buggy, and louder than I expected, but fine. By the second one, I could tell the difference between frogs, insects, and the distant splash of an alligator. I even started to find it peaceful, in a strange and lonely way. The third time out, though, something changed. It was mid-morning, clear sky, temperature already pushing 80. I'd parked off Turner River Road and hiked in along a shallow drainage channel that I'd been using as a sampling site. About a half mile from the road, the air became stifling, almost oppressive. It hit me like a wall, something sour, rotten, wet, and animal all at once. I gagged hard enough to bring up a little vomit in the back of my throat. This smell was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. It was thick and I couldn't get away from it. I figured a dead hog or gator must have been close by. Then I heard something walking. Real heavy steps. It almost reminded me of an elephant I saw at the circus once for some reason. But this wasn't that heavy. It only sounded like that stamping noise. I froze and listened. It huffed, low and rough, like a bull exhaling. The sound stopped when I did, and that somehow made it worse. I took my samples fast, nitrates, salinity, pH, and got out of there. I didn't even finish my notes until I was back in the car with the AC blasting. The next 2 trips were uneventful. I told myself whatever I'd heard was a hog, or possibly another researcher, though I never did see anyone else out there. It's not a place people usually visit. Then came the 5th trip. It was in the late afternoon this time. I'd been trying a new filtration method to get more accurate nutrient readings. The air was still and heavy, and I waded out to the same cluster of cypress knees I'd been using before. The water was thigh deep, brown and warm. Dragonflies skimmed the surface. I was alone, or so I thought. Then that smell came back. Not as strong at first, only a faint sourness, but enough to make me notice. I stopped, looked around, and there was nothing but trees and haze. I told myself it had to be swamp gas. One of the park staff had mentioned that it could smell bad after rain. I tried to busy myself on my work. Then I saw movement. Something big passed between 2 trees maybe 30 yards out. It was a blur of dark brown, almost black, tall and wide-shouldered. It moved in a way that made the whole canopy shift. I froze with the jar half submerged. Then I realized I'd stopped breathing. The swamp went quiet except for the buzzing of insects. Even the frogs were silent. I was like a statue for maybe a full minute, not daring to move. Then I packed up my equipment as fast as I could. When I turned toward the bank, I caught sight of it again, off to my left this time. It was bent low, half hidden behind some brush, hair everywhere, dark, matted, and greasy looking. This thing was easily over 7 feet if it stood straight. I didn't see a face, just the outline of something broad and bulky, with bits of the fur caught in the sunshine. The smell was overwhelming now. Sweet rot, sulfur, and wet fur. I thought I might vomit again. Trying to hold down my lunch, I splashed back toward the trailhead, keeping my eyes forward. My pack bounced against me, the bottles inside clinking together. I didn't care that I left half of them behind. As I got out of the water and back on the trail, I noticed it was following me. I couldn't see it, but I heard it moving through the brush behind me. I sped up and it did too. It was with me until I reached the higher ground near the access road. That's when I noticed the noise stopped. The smell lingered a little, then faded. By the time I reached my vehicle, everything was quiet again. I got in the car and got out of there. I had to keep all the windows down to air out the smell. I never did tell my advisor about it. My samples from that day were compromised, and I logged the site as inaccessible due to environmental conditions. I finished my thesis using a different site in the same swamp. Never had another encounter after that one. I'm a scientist. I need data, samples, and something measurable before I make any claim. But if someone asked me, off the record, what I think I saw out there, I'd tell them I saw a skunk ape. To start off, a little bit of backstory. My best friend Ava lives maybe half a mile from the Old Meridian School complex, close enough that you can see the clock tower from her bedroom window on a clear day. The school shut down back in 2008. From what I heard, it was something about asbestos and foundation issues, and the district not having enough money for repairs. They built the new consolidated school on the other side of town and left Meridian standing to just rot. Most of the campus is completely abandoned now. Around the perimeter, there are chain link fences with rusted no trespassing signs that nobody really pays attention to. I know from when I was in school that kids would go in there and trash the place and party on Friday nights. This mostly stopped when the elementary wing collapsed partially a few years back. Now the main building's windows are all either shattered or boarded up with plywood. For some reason, the old vocational building on the east side is still operational though. Some kind of alternative school program runs out of it. You probably know what that is. But in case you don't, it's a school for kids with behavioral issues, disciplinary problems, or they don't fit into the traditional learning style. They bus them in from all over the county. The program keeps to itself mostly, and there's always at least one security guard patrolling the grounds, making rounds around the perimeter every couple of hours. The whole property backs up against the woods, which is this dense stretch of trees that goes on for miles. Some of the trees have started to grow closer to the building, making it look like the forest is swallowing it up. It would almost be whimsical if the building wasn't such an eyesore. In the summer, the leaves and brush get so thick you can barely see the building from the road. Now that I've set the scene and how creepy it is back there, I'll move on to the sighting. Ava and I went out there on a Saturday afternoon in late October. For no reason, really. We were simply bored and restless. I guess we were curious to see if anything had changed since we went there once as teenagers. The weather had that autumn crispness, golden light filtering through the leaves, and the smell of wood smoke drifting from somewhere distant. Really, the whole thing was Ava's idea. She wanted to walk around and check it out. She promised me a pumpkin spice latte afterwards, so I went along with it. We parked at the staff lot on the north side, then walked past the gymnasium. Its double doors chained shut, and past the cafeteria building with its caved-in roof. I kept expecting to see a security car roll up, but the place felt utterly deserted that day. It was a Saturday though, so security probably didn't come around much, if at all. Still, I had my phone out just in case. I was going to say we were taking pictures if anyone asked. Want to check out the science wing? Ava asked, pointing toward a 3-story building half swallowed by the overgrowth of the forest. Sure, I said. It looks like we can get closer over there and maybe look in. We were about 20 yards from the building's entrance, just crossing what used to be a courtyard when we heard it. It was a loud crunching sound that came from the woods to our left. Both of us stopped mid-step. Probably just a deer, I said. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Whatever it was didn't sound like a deer. It was pretty loud, and deer tend to be more quiet. This was something heavy enough to make a lot of noise. That's not a deer, Ava whispered. Her face had gone pale. I was worried we had disturbed a homeless camp or something. It was a little scary being out there, because if something happened to us, no one on the road would be able to see. We were very well hidden in the trees at this point. I was really hoping it would be some kind of animal, although what kind I didn't know. Let's just back up slowly, I said, keeping my voice low. Don't run. If it's an animal, we don't want it to chase us. We started moving backward, one careful step at a time, our eyes locked in the direction the sound came from. The shadows further in were deep and impenetrable. I still couldn't see what was making the noise, but I could hear it continue to move. It was parallel to us now. Then Ava's phone exploded into sound. Her ringtone blasted at full volume. She fumbled for it, hand shaking, and managed to silence it after 3 rings. It's my boyfriend, she mouthed at me, face stricken with panic. The movement in the woods stopped. For maybe 5 seconds, there was absolute silence, and all I could hear was my own breathing and the blood rushing in my ears. Then something stood up. It must have been on all 4s before that moment. You could tell by the way it rose that it was unfolding upward from a crouch. It was tall, 6 feet easily, maybe taller, and impossibly thin. It reminded me of the starvation pictures that they show in school about prisoners in World War II. The figure stood completely still, and I couldn't make out any clothing. The afternoon sun backlit it through the branches and showed patches of white skin. They looked shiny, kind of like whatever it was covered in Vaseline. No, man, when I saw the face I almost lost it. I was expecting to see eyes and ears and hair. There was none of that. Nothing except the large mouth, and its eyes looked like skin had grown over them. My mind couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. It turned its head slowly. I was expecting to see eyes and ears and hair. There was none of that. Nothing except a large mouth, and its eyes looked like skin had grown over them. My mind couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. It turned its head slowly, scanning the courtyard looking for the source of the sound. Go, Ava breathed, and we ran. Neither of us cared any more about being careful. We just wanted the hell out of there. It was an all-out sprint across the broken pavement, past the ruined buildings, toward the parking lot. Despite our friendship, it turned into every girl for herself. My lungs burned like I had smoked 100 joints, but I noticed that behind us there was no sound, no pursuing footsteps, no crashing through the brush. We didn't stop until we reached Ava's car. She fumbled with the keys, dropped them, and then grabbed them again. We threw ourselves inside and she peeled out, tires spitting gravel. The entire drive back, neither of us could shake the feeling of being followed. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see something back there chasing us. Nothing ever appeared, but the sensation persisted. Later, safe in Ava's house with the doors locked and lights on, we tried to think of what it could have been. Ava insisted it was a sick homeless man. She even threw around leprosy. I don't think people even get that anymore, and from pictures I've seen, it doesn't make you look like that. It was pretty close to Halloween, so I thought it was some kind of elaborate costume. But who waits in the woods for someone to come by so they can scare them? Neither explanation makes sense. I still don't know what we encountered that day at the Old Meridian School. and I'm not sure I want to know. The worst part is, I never did get my pumpkin spice latte. So this happened to me about 3 months ago, and I still don't really know what to make of it. I've told my girlfriend, but she thinks I'm kidding her. I'm just putting it out here to see if anyone has experienced something similar. I was at my girlfriend's place in the evening, and ended up staying later than I meant to. Left around 10 p.m. to head home. There's this trail through the woods that cuts my walk time down from like 40 minutes to 25, and I've taken it probably 100 times. It was July, so everything was grown in thick, lots of leaves and undergrowth. That's an important detail. I was using my phone as a flashlight, since the trail doesn't have any lights, obviously. About 5 minutes in, I'm walking along, not really paying attention, when my light sweeps across something off to my left. I stop because it catches my eye. It's feet, dog feet to be exact, except they're huge, way bigger than any dog I've ever seen. I'm standing there trying to figure out what I'm looking at, and then I move my light up. There are legs, and the knees bend backwards like a dog's back legs do. Looking back now, I realize the problem, but at the time it didn't click. There were only 2 legs, 2 feet on the ground. A real dog would have had 4 feet, and those knees were high up, maybe 4 feet off the ground. I'm thinking, what kind of massive dog would have knees that high when standing? I keep moving my light up, but there's this big bush blocking whatever the rest of this thing is. I can see legs, and that's it. I take maybe 2 more steps, trying to get a better angle, and the thing bolts. Takes off running deeper into the woods. The sound scared the shit out of me, and I jump back and drop my phone. I grab my phone off the ground, and I'm spinning around trying to see where it went, because now I'm thinking there's some giant dog loose out here with me. My light doesn't reach that far into the trees, maybe 20 feet if I'm lucky, but I see something reflecting back at me. 2 red dots way out there in the dark. I stare at them for a few seconds trying to figure out what I'm seeing. Then they blink, both of them at the same time. I knew right then that they were eyes. I still can't see the actual animal or whatever it is, just the eyes. But based on the height of them, I'd say the thing was standing at least 7 feet tall, maybe more. I'm just frozen there holding my phone pointed at these eyes staring back at me. After a minute, I decide I need to keep moving, because I'm not about to stand in the middle of the woods all night. I start walking again, going slow, trying not to do anything that would make an animal want to charge me. Every 20 seconds or so, I swing my flashlight around to see where the eyes are. They're still there, staying back in the trees but moving when I move, keeping pace with me but maintaining distance. That's when I start hearing the breathing. It's deep and kind of raspy, and it's close enough that I can hear it over my own footsteps. Now, this is the weird part. I started to calm down. I don't know why. The initial scare wore off, and I felt like whatever this thing was, it wasn't trying to hurt me. The breathing had this strangely calming rhythm to it that told me everything was going to be okay. It was following me maybe, or maybe I was just walking parallel to wherever it was going. But I wasn't scared anymore. The walk took about 15 minutes total. I kept checking behind me, and the eyes stayed visible most of the way, keeping that same distance. Then near the end of the trail, I looked back one more time and they were gone. I got home fine, no problems. I've been through that trail probably 6 or 7 times since then, even twice at night. I'm not scared to take it. Part of me hopes I don't see it again, because I don't want to push my luck. But another part of me feels like if I do see it again, it's not going to hurt me. I don't know how to explain that feeling. It's just a sense I have. Whatever it was, I don't think it wanted to mess with me. It had plenty of opportunities if it did. Has anyone else had an experience like this? Where something was clearly there and clearly not normal, but you just felt like you weren't in danger? This is kind of a crazy story, so I'll keep it short. Maybe someone else out there has seen something similar around Fort Knox. So back in March, I was going through some shit with my ex. Won't bore you with all the details, but she was jerking me around on the custody schedule again. Changing pickup times last minute, asking for more money, that kind of thing. My lawyer kept saying document everything, but it was wearing me down. I've got this drive I do sometimes when I need to clear my head. Takes me down Route 1638, past the base towards Muldra. Not much out there except trees and fields, which is exactly why I like it. It was a Thursday night, maybe 11 or so. I just got off the phone with her and needed to not be sitting in my apartment stewing about it. Threw on some music, nothing specific, just whatever was loud, and headed out. That stretch of road is pretty dark, no streetlights or anything, just your headlights and whatever the moon gives you. I always go the speed limit through there, because I hit a deer on that same road about 2 years back, and it messed up my front end pretty good. So I'm careful now, always watching the shoulders. I'm maybe 15 minutes into the drive when my headlights catch something on the right side up ahead. At first, I thought it was a sign, or maybe one of those reflector posts they put up, because it bounced the light back at me really bright. But as I got closer, I could see it wasn't a sign. It was white, really white, and smooth looking, kinda shiny almost, and it was vaguely human-shaped but not quite. I started slowing down because I genuinely didn't know what I was looking at. Then before I could even process it, the thing bolted across the road in front of me. I didn't even have time to touch the brakes. It went from the right shoulder to the left and disappeared into the tall grass in maybe a second. But in that second I saw it. It was on all fours, really long and stretched out looking. Super thin, like way thinner than any animal I've ever seen. The limbs were too long for the body. I didn't see eyes or a nose or anything you normally see on a face, just what looked like a mouth. And the fingers, I got a clear look at those because of how it was moving. They had to be 6 to 8 inches long. Looked almost like claws, but covered in that same smooth white skin. I just kept driving, didn't even stop or turn around. My hands were shaking on the wheel. When I got home, I couldn't sleep, so I started Googling. Thought maybe it was some kind of animal I didn't know about, even though I knew that didn't make sense. I typed in something like white shiny humanoid claws, and that's when I found pictures of crawlers. Match was exact. Same everything. I haven't driven that road at night since. Has anyone else seen anything like this around here? So I work as a farmhand out here in Colorado. Lately, we've had some weird stuff going on around the shop. Nothing major at first, little stuff mostly, like the occasional slashed tire, some wires ripped out of equipment, and trash cans tipped over. We figured it was probably kids messing around after school or something like that. Never really thought much of it. This morning was different though. Harvest is coming up fast, so we try to get out before sunrise. We got a lot of field to cover, so we need all the sunlight we can get. I was driving down the long dirt road that runs between the fields and leads up to the shop. The sky was just starting to lighten a little, enough that I could see the wheat bending and swaying in the wind. That's when I saw it, or I guess I saw something moving through the wheat. I thought it was a deer. There are plenty around, and sometimes they spook easy. It kept pace with me for a little while, moving through the wheat in a way that made the stalks bend in part, but you couldn't see much else. Then when we came to a patch that doesn't have any wheat, There's a big boulder there that's never been removed. That's when I really saw it. It was on top of the rock, sitting there for a split second. It was so white I would have sworn it was glowing. And it looked tight too, like it was wrapped in latex or something. I don't even know how to describe it. It didn't have any features I could make out. But then again, it happened so fast I didn't get a good look at it. Next, it hopped off the rock and landed back in the wheat in one quick motion. And that was it. It was gone into the field faster than anything I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie, I have no clue what I really saw. My first thought was some kind of freak animal, like one of those escaped lab animals or something. But I've been around this country my whole life, and there's nothing native that moves like that. Nothing that glows that white, especially. And I started thinking about skinwalkers. My kids talk about them a lot, and they've heard stories from school and the internet. But I asked them about it, and it doesn't match at all. I'm really at a loss for what it was. This happened when I was a teenager back in the early 2000s, and I still think about it sometimes. I grew up in Colorado, and behind our house there's a stretch of forest that goes on for miles. It's not dense like the kind of forest you see in movies. More a bunch of tall trees, a lot of brush and rabbits. Tons of rabbits. They'd come right up to the fence sometimes, especially at dusk. Back then, I used to camp out in the woods behind our place whenever the weather was decent. It wasn't far, maybe a 5-minute walk from the backyard to where I'd usually set up the tent. My parents didn't care as long as I stayed close and checked in before bed. One summer, my best friend Josh was staying the night, and we decided we'd go camp out back. We were both about 15, so it wasn't like we were little kids. We simply wanted to hang out somewhere away from adults. We brought a bag of popcorn, some sodas, a flashlight, and our old Game Boys. It was a great night for it too, not too cold and not too hot. The sun was going down and everything had that orange tint to it. We were sitting in the tent, playing games and eating popcorn, when we heard this sound. It's hard to describe. Closest I can think of is kind of like a baby crying, but higher pitched and more shrill. We both froze. It went on for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, then stopped. It was an eerie dead quiet after that. Josh looked at me and said, "What the hell was that?" I didn't know. I'd never heard anything like it before, but I wanted to find out. We grabbed the flashlight and got out of the tent. At that point, the sun was almost gone, just a faint bit of light left through the trees. We circled the tent first to make sure nothing was nearby, then started walking toward where the sound had come from opposite the house, deeper into the woods. It wasn't far, maybe 100 feet or so. That's when we saw it. We both saw the deer instantly. You could see its back and the top of its head through the trees. It was standing there with its head down like it was eating something. I remember whispering, "It's just a deer," and Josh nodded. We started walking closer, not even trying to be quiet, because deer usually bolt as soon as they notice you. This one didn't. We got within about 15 feet before it finally turned its head toward us. And I swear to God, something about it was immediately wrong. Its eyes were dead looking, like glass not reflecting the flashlight like normal animal eyes do. Its antlers were twisted and uneven, like they'd grown the wrong way or been broken and healed weird. And its mouth had something red dripping from it. That's when I realized what it had been eating. I pointed the flashlight down, and there on the ground was a rabbit, or what was left of one. Its stomach was open and its insides were half gone. It hit me all at once. That scream we'd heard earlier wasn't some weird bird or baby crying. It was that rabbit dying, and the deer had killed it. I don't even remember what we said after that, or if we said anything at all. I just remember feeling this heavy panic in my chest, like everything in me was screaming to get away. Josh dropped the flashlight for a second, and when he picked it up again, the beam swung across the deer's face. It was still staring at us, mouth open just a little, red on its teeth. We ran, not even thinking about it. We turned and sprinted all the way back to the house. When we got inside, my mom was half asleep on the couch. She asked why we were so out of breath, and I said we'd heard something weird. We didn't tell her the rest of it, though. We stayed inside the rest of the night, lights on, too freaked out to go back for the tent until the next day. When we went out in the morning, everything looked normal. The tent was still there, the flashlight too. We went to where we'd seen the deer and there was nothing left but a few tufts of fur where the rabbit had been. I don't really talk about it anymore, because it sounds stupid to say a deer was eating meat. Josh remembers it the same way. I seriously don't think I'll ever forget the way it looked at us either.
You have been watching Neon Noir, a Radion production brought to you by Trapper Dan, the finest in canned survival food.